There are thousands of units in Dokkan Battle that were all designed at one point to be appealing to players. Last month, we talked about the most hated units in Dokkan history, so in the spirit of Valentine's Day, let's take a moment to celebrate some of the most loved units in the game. The cards I'm going to talk about in this video will start from the oldest to newest, and I know there's way too many loved units just for one video, so if you guys want part 2, show me by blowing this video up. I'm also going to try not to mention too many anniversary units though, since it would be way too obvious for this type of video. Now let's get straight into the list. Starting us off, we've got 2 units whose impact cannot be denied. Both of these units came out back in 2015 when the game released. But first, let's talk about our base form Tech Goku, who awakened into Namek Goku, one of the most unique awakening paths to this day. On Global, he would drop as an AGL Angel Goku and would awaken into a Tech SSJ Goku, which is one of, if not the only unit in the game to change types after Dokkan awakening. He wasn't OP or anything, but he was most people's first UR during this time period, and he had a 2% chance to raise attack by 150%. Nowadays, he has an EZA that made him actually pretty solid, but I think this card will hold a special place in many OG Dokkan players' hearts regardless. The other unit I want to talk about was also a free-to-play unit, and it's Int Mecha Frieza. Free-to-play units in this time period were actually really useful since getting them to super attack level 10 was actually doable, unlike most summonable units that you could barely pull in the first place. On top of all that, Frieza also had the rare ability of lowering enemy attack, which made him incredibly useful in the hard content at the time. These 2 units were very popular in the community during early Dokkan, and Goku will always be special to me since he was my first ever UR unit, and for quite a while. Moving on, I want to talk about one of the most important units in the game's history, AGL Kaioken Goku. This guy was by far one of the first cards to be called broken at the time. He also brought the community's attention to one of the coolest mechanics in Dokkan, stacking. Not only did he raise his attack by 67% per super, he also raised his attack stat by 2000 every turn. This made him essentially the hardest hitting unit in the game at the time because clearing Dokkan events was no joke back then. It actually took time and you had to bring the right characters or it was game over every time. Even if you had the right characters, you still had to be careful when taking on an event like Broly with his AoEs. The thing about Goku was that in this time period, there were no additionals, crits, or dodge. So dealing damage, praying, and using items were the best strategies to beat difficult content, making him the ultimate option for most teams. The goal every time was to defend and save key orbs on the field until Goku was back in rotation so he could deal actual damage to the boss. This was truly the dark ages of Dokkan, but this Goku was definitely the light at the end of the tunnel for many people. I hope he gets a super EZA one day. The next unit I want to talk about is STR Gogeta. This unit was the king of Dokkan. He pioneered good leader skills. I know Ki +3 was a thing before Gogeta, but him leading all types changed the game. Even later when we got the mono god leads, people still used STR Gogeta. The reason this was possible was because endgame content was still just Dokkan events. Vegeta was a better leader for sure, but with Gogeta not on the team, people were disappointed. Gogeta was Dokkan and only left the meta when the events started hitting harder, but this card was a fan favorite and definitely got its time to shine, and now that he has a super EZA, he's actually a very solid option again. AGL Super Vegeta gets some disrespect nowadays, but when he was in his prime, he was untouchable, and his only competition came when STR Gogeta finally got a team with the new leader skills and the release of STR Omega Shenron and STR SSJ4 Goku in the 2nd anniversary. Vegito's counters and damage reduction were so ahead of his time that the devs banished this man to never be the best unit in the game again. He literally was untouchable, and they even made sure to give him a weaker EZA. Now, he's got a pretty solid super EZA, but still underwhelming compared to Buhan's super EZA. Speaking of Buhan, he was also one of the best units in the game at the time, and definitely deserves to be an honorable mention in this video. With a debuffing super attack, healing, and a nuking passive, he dominated this era of Dokkan. Anyways, back on the topic of Vegito, when he came out, he was loved by everyone, and AGL teams were at the top no matter what. The only card who came remotely close besides Buhan was Tech Gotenks, who had a lot of love too with his 11 key super mechanic, but still couldn't stand up to Vegito. All 4 of these units are definitely units that people have special places for in their heart. This era of Dokkan was super simple but super fun nonetheless. Up next is a very special dual spot shared between Tech LR SSJ3 Dragon Fist Goku and Int SSJ2 Teen Gohan. When these 2 came out as summonable LRs, people were doing anything they could to pull them. Even Majin Vegeta had hype surrounding him, but these 2 were truly special. I remember being blown away by the YouTube content I saw back in the day about them. SSJ3 was one of the hardest hitting units in the game when he came out, and Gohan on a nuke lead was the hardest hitting unit in the game, because on top of the nuke lead, he also gained 18% attack per orb obtained. I remember watching people doing damage tests with Gohan, and everyone was so impressed since he could actually charge up well into the millions if he had a full screen of orbs. Nowadays, every unit does millions of damage. But in 2017, if a card hit over 3 million on an attack stat, they were literally one of the best cards in the game. Gohan also had one of the best animations in the game on his 18 key super attack, which just added to why he was such a loved card. If you were around back then you know exactly why I chose to put him in this video. I know I said I wouldn't talk about anniversary units, but the third anniversary was one of the most legendary releases of all time. Gogeta and Vegito. They were incredible units for the time and lasted a decent while and added transforming units to the game, but that wasn't all they did. They also had healing, while Vegito had counters and Gogeta was effective against all types. The third year of Dokkan also saw the release of transforming SSJ Goku and First Form Frieza in August 2018. The reason these units were amazing was not because they were super meta, but because they were cool, and back in this period there still wasn't really any hard content to challenge players besides Super Battle Road, and for that this unit was actually quite good. They actually gave Goku damage reduction and decided to balance him by lowering his defense boost every time he transforms. Frieza was the exact same, but instead of damage reduction, he had increased healing at the beginning of every transformation. These two also had very versatile leader skills. Goku led super types and Frieza led extreme types. They weren't the strongest leaders, but definitely the most beginner friendly cards in the game. People really liked these two on release, but as time went on, we've kind of developed past this type of unit. We've seen with more recent releases like physical transforming Vegeta, who was a complete failure, that this isn't really a viable type of mechanic for units anymore. But on release, Goku and Frieza were loved by the community. A few honorable mentions for 2018 are the hard-hitting LR Tech Go Frieza, the Pure Saiyans lead AGL Vegeta, who was one of the best leaders in the game and had built-in additionals as well as a transformation, and the full power SSJ4 Tech Goku, who had amazing animations and really good damage as well as the ability to nullify super attacks sometimes. Moving on to the fourth year, or 2019, we got one of the best celebrations of all time, the Broly movie celebration, and in it we got two of the most beloved units of all time that brought tons of new fans and players to the game. We got Gogeta, of course, and God Goku, who is still relevant to this day simply because of his damage reduction. Gogeta was the king on release though. He had the best animations in the game and transformed into his blue form, which just made him even cooler. I had friends who never played the game before downloading just to summon for Gogeta. People still have a lot of love and respect for this unit even after we got the 9th anniversary LR version, and I am one of those people. Three other interesting units we got in 2019 were the April Fool's 8-bit units that weren't even bad for free-to-play options, and the underrated AGL base Broly, who for some reason got an easy A the day after he came out. Jacket Goku and Vegeta from the Broly movie event were really cool and solid free-to-play units as well. In 2020, which was one of the most underwhelming years of Dokkan, we still have a few units to talk about. First off, obviously one of the best anniversary part 1 drops of all time. Vegito and Gogeta were absolutely amazing in every way, but besides them, we have got to talk about the GOAT Tech Ultimate Gohan, who broke the game and was viable for the next 4 years with no easy A. His greatly stacking attack and defense on top of permanent guard made him one of the hardest hitters and best defensive units in the game. We also got Tech Caulifla, who had guaranteed dodge against Pure Saiyans and Universe Survival Saga enemies. This wasn't too busted at the time, since there weren't many boss fights with Pure Saiyans or Tournament of Power units. This wasn't that overpowered, but nowadays she's a great unit to bring if you can't actually fill out your team. SDR Vegito was a pretty cool release at the time too. His only issue was that it was too hard to transform him and actually use the cool part of his kit. He was a very solid unit at the time with damage reduction and solid stats. The 6th year of Dokkan had a handful of fan favorite units that were very likable. Most importantly, besides the anniversary units, we had Namek Goku and Tech Gogeta. Namek Goku had such amazing animation on top of an amazing kit with additionals and stacking defense. There's a reason he was one of the most anticipated Easy A's this year. Meanwhile, Tech Gogeta has one of the coolest transformations to this day. He had rainbow orb changing and damage reduction and even healing with a 5-turn scouter. He also had one of the easiest transformation conditions in the game, making him a lot better than the S tier LR Vegito, who needed to be below 77% HP, while Gogeta only needed to be above 70% HP, which is a lot easier to do. The 7th year of Dokkan was definitely special. Obviously, the insane 7th anniversary part 1 and 2 LRs are some of the most loved units in the game, but besides them, we've got LR Trunks and Vegeta, who were one of the best defensive units in the game for a long time, and then we got the Gammas, who were by far the best TURs in the game with great defense and crazy additional damage, and on offense they were super fun to use. Then, right after all those amazing units, we got Orange Piccolo, who was in the top 5 LRs for over 2 years. His defense was so amazing that he managed to outlast 90% of units and even was usable well into the Dokkan's 9th year. The 8th anniversary is next, and the GT Duo was definitely much more appreciated as a unit over the Boo Bros. But during the year, we also got STR LR Future Gohan, who is an incredible tank and damage dealer with a cool domain and crazy high HP stat. We got Mirza Masu, who had the best domain in the game and was the best tank in the game while completely outshining Vegito Blue. The 9th anniversary was a lot better and completely blew everyone away with how good Beast Gohan was. He is still one of the top LRs to this day. We also got the amazing SSJ3 and Angel Goku TUR, who everyone liked because of his cool design and slot 1 capabilities. I can't cover every unit in 2024, but almost every unit this year was very solid. Dokkan did a great job in 2024, and if I covered every unit in this video, it would be twice as long just because of 2024. And before I talk about the 10th year of Dokkan, I just want to do 2 honorable mentions. The Tech Android 17 and 18 were insanely useful, and people loved that card for a long time thanks to its Ghost Usher ability. The other unit I think could be in this video is the physical SSJ2 Goku that transforms into SSJ3 and recently got an EZA. This card was very solid and had some decent utility even past its release year of 2021. Moving on to the 10th year of Dokkan, we don't know much yet, but I'm sure there's a bright future ahead here. Vegito is literally busted with his counters and can one-turn almost every boss in the game. The EZAs of old units have been good, and we obviously know every unit besides Evo Vegeta is going to be amazing. I can already tell you Gogeta will either be number 1 or 2 in the top LR's ranking. They are probably going to give him crazy nullifications, dodge, and a million additionals or something crazy like that. Gohan already looks great. I'm sure he's going to be a top tank because it seems to be a trend with most Gohans to be unstoppable. And Go Frieza is hopefully not going to be a fraud. Also, YouTube says you'll probably like the video on screen, so go check it out. Thank you all so much for watching, and please subscribe if you made it this far.